Hi everyone. This is a subject that is very, very needed in the present times, especially when we are in times where we are looking at our crystalline activation. Whilst our crystalline activation is on, and as you know, I have said this before, it is on even if you don't do anything about it, and if you consciously are working on the activation, it is accelerated. But in either case, the crystalline consciousness activation is on for everyone. While this activation is on, and because the crystalline energy has this one particular facet, characteristic, everything that is stored in the body, in the nervous system, in the emotional and mental bodies, gets highly magnified, highly amplified, because that is one of the characteristics of the crystalline energy, that it amplifies everything that is within. So if there is an imbalance, then naturally that imbalance is going to be magnified. An imbalance of the masculine or the feminine energy is neither an excessive amount or a deficient amount. It's not about it being, not about the quantity, it's not about a quantum, it's not about a volume. And why is it not about a volume or a quantity? Because there is nothing tangible, measurable, and identifiable in the human system that you could label as masculine or feminine. In fact, though we make these distinctions, the energy flowing through us is really just one stream of energy. And that one stream of energy has little rivulets flowing through it, adding to it. So rivulets of different feelings, of different thoughts, of different words, and so on. So there is, in fact, only one energy flow that is going through us. So when we speak of the masculine and we label it as masculine, or we speak of the feminine and label it as such, we have to very clearly first understand that there is no, and I'm repeating this again, there is no identifiable or measurable or tangible separate energy stream that you could say very clearly, this is the masculine energy stream or this is the feminine energy stream. Doesn't exist. What does exist is that as we use energy for different purposes, for different functions, due to the function, due to the usage, the energy changes its characteristic for that temporary period of time. So if I am with my baby and I'm nurturing it, or I'm breastfeeding it, or if I am an artist and I am sitting before my easel and I am painting, in both these circumstances, the energy shifts its characteristics and becomes a nurturing energy, a creative energy, an intuitive energy, an absorbing energy. And we, as human beings, term this energy as feminine. But after, let us say, I have finished nurturing my child, I have finished painting whatever I was painting, I then move into a place where, let us say, I am meeting business people and have to make some business related decisions. Now the function of the energy is not nurturance, is not creativity, is not about intuition. Now the function of the energy is to discern, is to make sense of things, is to be analytical, is to be decisive, is to create a structure. So as the characteristics of this energy shifts, the energy turns, the same energy stream. Please, I repeat again, there is no two different energy streams. That same energy stream turns in characteristic, and the characteristics that come up to the fore are what we will call, or what we will label as, masculine energy. So then, how does the word imbalance fit into this truth? This statement, which I have written, imbalance is an over-identification with a few characteristics of the one energy. This over-identification is for the purpose of inner safety or security. Very important. Yes, as personalities, as personas, we are ruled by our astrological signs, we are ruled by our race structures, which many of you, a large number of you hearing this, will already have in your soul blueprint. Having said that, the astrological placements and the race structures give us what could be called a natural propensity. But our life circumstances can, and very often do, move us away from this natural propensity. So let me give you my own example. I am Cancerian by birth, the sun sign, which is literally called the mother of the zodiac. So my natural propensity is towards a rich feminine energy. But I started working and earning out of my own choice. It was never imposed upon me by my family or family circumstances, nothing. By my own choice, I started working and earning my own livelihood from the age of 17. And that put me onto a trajectory of career goals, right, in different aspects. Also, because of various situations, I felt safer, and that is why I understand this over-identification that JF speaks of. I felt safer as a teenager, as a young adult, as even a mature adult for a number of years before I started self-healing work. I felt safer when I was not emotional, when I was separate from my emotions, not separate, when I was not connected to my emotions, when I was dissociating from my emotions. So my natural propensity towards the feminine was pushed to one side, and I became more, I used the masculine characteristics far more than I did the feminine characteristics. In JF's term, I identified for a very, 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 very long time with the characteristics of the masculine. And that became my go-to state of inner energy. So there was a huge over-identification with the masculine. And that is why at that period of time, for those so many years, there was a complete imbalance in the energy structure, because there was such a predominant over-identification with the masculine that the feminine energy was barely acknowledged. In fact, I distinctly remember times when I would sneer at what I called the weak feminine. I would actually sneer at it. That was the level of my over-identification with the masculine. Having worked so much on myself, there is a far greater level of balance. But I have to admit this, in times of deep stress, the old habit of moving into or feeling comfortable, feeling safe with the characteristics of the masculine energy still come up to the fore. So this is what imbalance means, where there is over-identification with a few characteristics of the one energy. If you over-identify with the creative aspect, with the nurturing aspect, with the sensitivity aspect, with the emotional aspect, then there is an excess or an imbalance vis-a-vis the feminine energy. So imbalance is the body's way of adapting. And this is so important for us to understand. As our crystalline activation takes place, we have to ensure that we are doing everything in our power, in our awareness, to regulate the nervous system, to make the nervous system feel safe at all moments. Because small shifts in the energy space will be amplified by the crystalline energy and might deregulate the nervous system. So imbalance, the word imbalance that we use, is actually no failure on our part. It was the way you and I adapted to whatever life situations we were going through. So the imbalances that are present in our system have been caused by our desire to survive through those situations, to adapt to those situations, and to feel safe even as the situations around us might have been threatening. Very, very important to get this clearly, so that we never condemn ourselves or blame ourselves for something that was actually keeping us safe. in all those years when I so strongly identified with the masculine, that was my way, that was my nervous system choosing a way to keep me feeling safe, to not make me collapse under whatever the nervous system was perceiving as a threat. So today, I want each one of us to be very clearly able to identify the physical symptoms, the physical signs, the emotional signs, the mental signs, which very clearly point out to us where our over-identification lies. I have so often in my sessions been asked this question, how do I know which energy is imbalanced? And that's a very valid question, right? In all those years when I was over-identifying with the masculine energy, I didn't know that I was living in imbalance. My life was going on the way it was going on. Some high moments and some low moments like we all have. I had no idea that there was such a huge energy imbalance. So it's important for us to be able to understand that energy imbalance. Energy imbalance can take place several times in a day. So you may wake up in the morning and be emotionally triggered or hurt by something that your spouse says, let us say, right? So you are getting over emotional, over sensitive, whatever. So again, there is that imbalance of the feminine. Then you leave for work, and at your place of work, you are doing great work and your boss is praising you and you've been given a new project to work on and you start creating structures for that new project. You've shifted into the masculine. You return home in the evening and your children are not at their best behavior, and one kid has a bad report card from school, and you might once again move into an imbalanced feminine. So several times in the day, we could have energy imbalances. But when we are consistently in, or as a default mechanism, moving more into one than the other, then that becomes like a long-term imbalance as well, right? So in those years when I had a long-term imbalance of the masculine, an excess of the masculine, it doesn't mean that in those years I never cried or I didn't do anything creative. No, not at all. I remember enjoying making candles. I enjoyed making chocolates. I used to cry quite easily if someone was rude to me or I felt rejected. So of course there were moments and times when I moved into the feminine as well. But overall, my default had become a masculine. That is where I felt safe. So once you know your symptoms, and if you've been able to identify these symptoms accurately, you can then look at it and say, how many of these symptoms show me the masculine list and how many show me the feminine tendency? And whichever one has a greater number of symptoms, that could be your default mechanism. We are looking at the physical symptoms for the masculine imbalance. Okay, masculine imbalance. If any of these resonate with you, write them down. Chronic tension in the body, which means you catch yourself very often with a tight jaw, or your shoulders are tense, things like that. Chronic tension in the body is a very clear physical symptom of imbalance of the masculine. Then a burnout due to overworking, right? Working far longer hours than you should, or working at too many things at the same time. That kind of burnout is also imbalance of the masculine. Feeling of tiredness in the morning, where you wake up feeling exhausted. Feeling of tiredness in the morning is a huge symptom of masculine imbalance. Inability to handle stress, being a very intolerant, impatient person, that is also a sign of the imbalance. Emotional eating, although it sounds like a feminine thing, emotional eating is actually a masculine imbalance. And JF explained this to me, that when your body wants a lot of sugar or wants a lot of salt, it's because you are not connecting to your emotions. You are dissociating from your emotions, and that's why you have this craving. So the binging aspect that comes from these cravings are actually symptomatic of masculine imbalance. Headaches, migraines, inability to rest, poor sleep quality, brain fog, where you can't think clearly, right? Either very highly motivated, which means overly motivated, overly ambitious, or not being able to motivate yourself at all. So complete inertia. Both the extremes show masculine energy imbalance. Now let's come to the feminine imbalance in the physical. How does it show up physically? Where there is very low energy throughout the day. For masculine is when you are tired or exhausted right at the beginning of the day, and then somehow you kind of find the energy again. But if this sluggish energy lasts throughout the day, then that is a feminine energy imbalance. Of course, if you have actual physical imbalances of hormones, etc., that is very clearly feminine imbalance. Oversensitivity, over dramatization of emotions, not able to maintain or sustain relationships where you have constant relationship issues, very poor physical discipline, where you overindulge and you eat a lot, or you go on a very, very, very rigorous diet. You may over exercise, or you may not exercise at all. So very poor physical discipline where there is no moderation. That, interestingly, is also feminine imbalance. Now let's go into the mental energies. How do these show up as imbalances? Okay. So if you are a very over analytical person, if you are constantly in problem solving mode, then that is definitely a masculine energy imbalance. I clearly remember my daughter once telling me, not too long ago, "Mom, when I vent to you, it's only because I want to vent about whatever's bothering me. You tend to move into problem solving it for me, and I don't need that from you." In fact, you moving into problem solving mode makes me uncomfortable because I don't want that. I just want you to sit and listen. So if you are that kind of person who just quickly moves into problem solving mode, then that is a masculine energy imbalance. If you have a need to control everything, you want to be certain of everything, the black and white thinking, the shoulds, should nots, these are all masculine energy. Feminine energy imbalances in the mental is not being able to focus, scattered focus, being very unstructured, very messy, all over the place, indecisive, constantly daydreaming, losing yourself in your own thoughts, absorbing energies from people and not really using your own mind to think about things. These are all feminine energy imbalances. Let's go into emotion. When there is emotional suppression, when you are unable to name the emotion, when you're unable to connect with your emotion, when you are the kind of person who refuses any help and has this attitude of I can handle it all on my own, that is a very sure excess masculine energy imbalance there. If on the other hand there is copious tears for the smallest trigger, if you are constantly seeking validation from others, am I right, am I not, what should I do? If you have a lot of difficulty creating and maintaining your boundaries, if you have a lot of mood swings, this is all feminine energy imbalance. Go through this list, understand where you were at different parts of the day. What were the triggers? How did those triggers make you imbalanced? Why did they make you imbalanced? What is your go-to or default mechanism? Why does that default mechanism make you feel safe? Because remember, this is all about feeling internally safe. Once you have that list in front of you, each one of us will have a different way to work towards coming into balance, right? So, for example, if you are overly logical, maybe very gently, maybe with someone's help, you can teach yourself how to connect to your emotions. On the other hand, if you are very emotional and there's almost like an emotional flood every time, again, with someone's help, gently, compassionately teach yourself how to be more logical, how to step back from a trigger, how to analyze, and how to take time before responding. So all of this is something that we have to do at a very practical day-to-day level. Working on it on an energy level will of course work, but you have to address this very strictly and in a very disciplined manner on a practical day-to-day level as well. JF has been making me work so clearly for my own work on breath work. When I inhale to a count of 4, I'm chanting, I am balanced masculine in my mind. And then I exhale through the mouth to a count of 6, chanting, I am balanced feminine. Inhale, I am balanced masculine. Exhale, I am balanced feminine. I find that works for me. Thank you, everyone. Thank you once again for being here. I'll see you all next week. Have an absolutely amazing week. For this week, let us all every day be very mindful of our energy shifts through the day At the end of the day, let us do a little bit of breath work so that we go to sleep in a balanced state. Let's not go to sleep with excess or deficiency. Let's go to sleep in a balanced state. 5 to 7 minutes of this breathing, and the sleep you get is so deep and so marvelous. So let's work on that and facilitate our crystalline activation. Big hug to all of you.